So good day everyone. Today we're going to tackle about the lifeboat ethics. So this is the outline of my discussion. What is a lifeboat ethics? The two lifeboat metaphor of the planet Earth, which is the spaceship metaphor and the lifeboat metaphor. Next is the rich versus poor reproductive differences. The fundamental error of spaceship ethics, what is a World Food Bank, the problems for the World Food Bank, and lastly, the food bank solution. Before that, we're going to have a little background about Garrett Hardin. So, Garrett Hardin was an American ecologist who warned of the dangers of human overpopulation. So, si Garrett Hardin is concerned about overpopulation in our country. He is most known for his exposition of the tragedy of the commons. He is the author of books and articles on human ecology, the study of how human life is sustained on our planet. So what is a lifeboat ethics? Lifeboat ethics is a metaphor for resource distribution proposed by the ecologist Garrett Hardin in 1974. Lifeboat ethics is closely related to environmental ethics, utilitarianism, and issues of resource depletion. Hardin uses lifeboat ethics to question policies such as foreign aid, immigration, and food banks. So, foreign aid, so ang Pilipinas kay makigbarter sa laing country, then ang ubang country is makigbarter sa Pilipinas. Just like for example, kanang gold kay mayaman man tas likas na yaman. But ang Pilipinas di man kabalo kung paun sa i-deliver ang minerals para ma-inkaman. So, maong ginabarter nila sa laing country. Maong sa gawas na sila production sa gasoline, production of oil, then ang Pilipinas wala man taan nga mga materials. So immigration is kanang ako is residence ko sa Philippines, then ni-migrate ko sa laing country. So maupod na isa sa makakos og lifeboat ethics. So ang food banks is kanang gina-collect, gina-donate nga mga foods para i-distribute sa mga tao. So these are the three things nga gi-question ni Garrett Hardin sa pag-study niya about sa lifeboat ethics. Ang foreign aid, immigration, and the food banks. So, at the beginning of the article, Garrett Hardin presents the two lifeboat metaphors of the planet Earth. So, the first one is the spaceship metaphor. Is to describe Earth would be that no single person or institution has the right to destroy, waste, or use more than a fair share of its resources. So, ang spaceship metaphor kay is to describe Earth nga walang isa ka tawo or isa ka establishments nga naay right nga moguba or magsayang-sayang or kanang maghinubra og kuha sayang share nga ana nga resources. So, dapat kay gamit kag mga resources is naka-balance lang siya. So, next is the lifeboat metaphor presents individual lifeboat as rich nation. So, like for us, kanang kita nga Pilipino, wala ta kakita nga og chance nga mo-grow financially or mulambo. So, ang mga Pilipino, mag-think sila og laing option mo adto sila sa laing country aron makatrabaho. So, mauna na siya nga naiuban mo abroad. Environmentalists use the metaphor of the earth as a spaceship in trying to persuade countries, industries, and people to stop wasting and polluting our natural resources. So, ang mga environmentalists is grifer nila nga ang earth kay spaceship. Spaceship na siya para ma-convince ang country o establishment nga hunungon ang kanang pag-polluting and degrading our natural resources. Hunungon ang kanang makadaot o makakalas-kalas sa mga resources. So, ang point ni Garrett Hardin diri is to love Mother Earth. So since we all share life on this planet, they argue no single person or institution has the right to destroy, waste, or use more than a fair share of its resources. So since we all share life on this planet, so di ba kay degrading ang point is to care about Mother Earth kay tungod we all share life on this planet. So kita tanan gapuyo sa Earth. So, once ma-damage ang Earth, dili lang kay isa o duha ang maapektuhan, kundi ang tanang nagpuyo sa kalibutan. So, but does everyone on Earth have an equal right to an equal share of its resources? So, makaingon ta nga, dili tanan deserve makakuha og equal access sa natural resources. Kay tungod, naay ubang mga tao nga ginaabusaran nila ang Earth, nga ginatawag sa mga environmentalist og spaceship. Pero naapoy uban mga tao nga ginakare nila ang Earth, but mostly, ginaabusaran siya. So, mao nang dili tanan deserve nga naay equal natural resources. In terms of rich and poor countries, the 2/3 of the world is poor and 1/3 is comparatively rich. We should be viewing the Earth as a lifeboat rather than a spaceship. You would have to recognize the capacity of each lifeboat. So kung ang barko gani or ang ship is kanang ma-overload na siya, mukuan jud na siyang mo-sink in, ma-unload jud na siya, pero ang ship gani kay equal lang siya sa gipangayo nga capacity, so mo survive jud na siya. So it is reminders na nga ang lifeboat ethics kay reminder sa mga tao nga how to use resources, how to use environment, kanang carefully dapat dili sayang-sayangan, dili i-destroy kay tungod ang lifeboat ethics is like for example ang ship. Kung ang ship mapuno, nigmapuno na gani na siya, ang ship nya madungagan paghihapon siya nya dili na niya kaya ang kapasidad, ma-destroy gyud na siya, ma-destroy iyang purpose, ma-destroy ang iyang destination kay tungod puno naman siya. So dapat ang capacity sa ship kay maora dapat ang mabilong. This is the basic metaphor within which we must work out our solution. So dapat we must work out our solution. So, if ang tao sa buog is overpopulated, dapat natay possible solutions kung unsa atong himuon o buhaton nga solution para ma-sustain ang mga tao sa buog, para dili sila moadto sa laing country. Like for example, transportation. Sa una kay lisod kaayo magsakayan, so karon kay na-sustain naman siya, daghan nagmakasakyan. So let us now enrich the image step by step with substantive additions from the real world. A world that must solve real and pressing problems of overpopulations and hunger. So kung di nato na siya malikayan, so mao na siya mahitabo, magkagutom ang mga tao. So isa sa gi-studyhan ni Garrett Hardin kay ang overpopulation. Kay kung ma-overpopulation na ganita, mao na dayon tong mahitabo ang katong foreign aid kay para makasupply ta sa atong daily needs na immigration, na anay mga taga Pilipinas maadtog abroad kay tungod ang Pilipinas dili naman nila makita nga worth it pa sila mopuyo sa Pilipinas kay nagkalisod naman sila. So the rich versus poor reproductive differences. So the growth rate of rich nation or the people on the lifeboats were doubling in numbers and average every 87 years, while the poor nations or the people outside the lifeboats were doubling every 35 years. So the growth rate of rich nation is doubling in numbers an average of every 87 years, while the poor is doubling every 37 years. So mas daghan ang population sa poor countries kaysa rich countries. As this number keeps increasing and the world's resources keeps decreasing, the difference in prosperity between the rich and poor also continue to rise. So, kapag maka-increase ang population sa tao, ang mga resources sad kay magkagamay. So this is the human population between the rich countries and the poor countries. So ang poor countries ang pinakataas og population compared to rich countries. Let's proceed to the fundamental error of spaceship ethics. So, the fundamental error of spaceship ethics is the tragedy of the commons. So, under a system of private property, people who own property recognize their responsibility to care for it, for if they don't, they will eventually suffer. A farmer, for instance, will allow no more cattle in a pasture than its carrying capacity justifies. If he overloads it, erosion sets in, weeds takes over, and he loses the use of the pasture. Sa example, ang usa ka tawo naa siya'y baka din, naa siya'y area nga pwede niya dito itugboy ang baka din. Ang kaning nga area kay gi-share niya sa ubang tawo nga naay baka din. After many months kay ang resources nga ginakaon sa baka kay nahurot. So ang mahitabo kay ang baka is wala na yung kanunon. So isasad ni siya nga gina-argue ni Garrett Hardin nga ang resources should not be shared. So next is the World Food Bank. A World Food Bank appeals powerfully to our humanitarian impulses. But before we rush ahead with such a plan, let us ask if such a program would actually do more good than harm, not only momentarily but also in the long run. Those who propose a food bank usually refer to a current emergency or crisis in terms of world food supply. So, ang purpose sa World Food Bank is for emergency and crisis in terms of world food supply. Like, pariha atong nikalit lang og ka-lockdown. So, si President Duterte nagpakanaog siya og supply nga kaning mga tawo tagaan og mga ayuda such as rice and canned goods. So, although they may be infrequent and sudden, everyone knows that emergencies will occur from time to time. A well-run family, company, organization, or country prepares for the likelihood of accidents and emergencies. So, kaning mga ing-ani nga emergency or crisis, so dapat ang mga tawo, ang mga immediate residents dapat prepare sab sila kay ang emergency is come time to time, like kanang pagbaha, paglinog, pagbagyo, then ang uban pang mga calamities. If each country is solely responsible for its own well-being, poorly managed ones will suffer. But they can learn from experience. So, dapat be ready ang mga tao from time to time. So, they may mend their ways and learn to budget for infrequent but certain emergencies. For example, the weather varies from year to year, and periodic crop failures are certain. So, kani kay bagyo man, so, naay mga crops nga failure. So, ang mahitabo, ang mga farmers kay, dili sila maka-income. A wise and competent government saves out of the production of the good years in anticipation of bad years to come. So, sa mga panahon nga wala pa mahitabo ang mga calamities, prepare ang government as well as ang tao. Dapat be responsible kung unsa pod ang buhaton kung naanay calamities. So, every human born constitutes a draft on all aspects of the environment: food, air, water, forest, beaches, wildlife, scenery, and solitude. Food can perhaps be significantly increased to meet a growing demand. If we satisfy a growing population's need for food, we necessarily decrease its per capita supply of the other resources needed by people. So, example, in India now has a population of 600 million, which increases by 15 million each year. So, Kung magkadako ang tao, magkadaghan ang population. Then ang magkagamay sad ang mga resources. So that's why gina-discourage ni Garrett Hardin ang overpopulated kay magkadako ang population, ang magsuffer is ang mga tao kay magkagamay man ang mga resources. So, pareha aning sa India, naabot sila 600 million, which increases 15 million each year. So, this population already puts a huge load on a relatively impoverished environment. The country's forests are now only a small fraction of what they were 3 centuries ago, and floods and erosion continually destroy an insufficient farmland that remains. So, tungod kay nagkadaghan ang population, nagka-increase sad ang mga calamities like floods, erosion, kay ang mga tao sa India, ang ilang place dito kay napuno na siya building. Gamay na kaayo ang natural resources like trees nga, ang trees kay maoy mapugong every time magbaha. So, na-overpopulated man ang India, that's why they experience floods and erosion nga. Maoy makadestroy o makahimong insufficient farmland that remains. Every one of the 15 million new lives added to India's population puts an additional burden on the environment and increases the economic and social cost of crowding. So, mao na siya, need na dayon nilag help sa other country kay dili naman makastan ang India. However, humanitarian our intent, every Indian life saved through medical or nutritional assistance from abroad diminishes the quality of life for those who remain and for subsequent generations. While our good intentions be sufficient excuse for the consequences of our actions, without a true world government to control reproduction and the use of available resources, the sharing ethic of the species is impossible. So, diri na dayon mahimo ang sharing ethic of species is impossible. So, naa na dayon mo abroad, naa na magpinas, parihaan ng mga incheck mo, adto sila diri sa Pinas para magnegosyo. So, next is the problems for the World Food Bank. So, it would create an industrial complex with a vested interest in keeping the program going, even if it was not needed. So, the poor countries will never learn to take care of their own needs if they know they can rely on the rich to do it from them. So, ang poor countries kay dili sila maghuna-una nga mag-save og mga panginahanglanon nila when it comes crisis kay magsalig sila nga tunulan sila og ayuda og uban pang mga donations sa mga rich nations. So, the food bank solution. There have been a common proposal for a food bank system by many liberal international groups. So, the concept of a food bank is an international food depository system where participating countries would contribute to their ability and grow to their needs. So, that's the end of my report. Thank you for watching.